Welcome to Close Combat, the Bloody First. My name is Tobal. Close Combat is a tactical World War II simulation at the company level made by developers Slitherine. Close Combat, the Bloody First takes place in World War II and follows the Big Red 1 Division, the United States Army 1st Division, as it moves from Africa to Italy into Western Europe. There are a few different game modes available. The primary one that you'll see is the Grand Campaign. The Grand Campaign will take you to all the places that I mentioned before, and it's split up into multiple operations. Each operation will have multiple battles in it, and the battles themselves can be split into multiple phases depending on your performance. So for example, if your unit happens to push an enemy objective, but you can't quite push the Germans off the point, you guys might have a stalemate. But then the next time the battle starts up, you'll have that capture point available to kind of deploy your troops from. It's really cool that it gives you that aspect of kind of rest and recovery. I like the system a lot because I think it's very accurate of how battles took place in World War II. Another interesting feature that I've come across is the ability to choose kind of what's going to happen in the next battle. So say, for example, you are defending a point and you absolutely crush the Germans as they try to push in, and you actually manage to push them back to the edge of the map and take all victory points. Well, the next battle and the operation might ask you, do you want to counterattack? Do you want to do it hastily? Do you want to wait until morning? Do you want to try to launch a night attack? Or do you not want to counterattack at all and just sit where you are and continue to defend? I like that it gives you the choice and to make a little bit of a nudge in history. So if you want to try to push the counterattack and push the advantage, you can, or you can stay around and continue to defending. Another interesting feature of the Grand Campaign is this progressive system that tracks your morale, supply, fatigue, and things like that. So, for example, if you're going from operation to operation in Northern Africa and you're absolutely throwing your troops at the Germans, you might have a bit of a morale problem. So later on in the campaign, it might become harder for you to achieve your goals because you sacrificed so many troops early on. And it really builds on that and lets you kind of get into the spirit of taking care of your troops, using them properly, and not sacrificing them needlessly. I mentioned tracking the troops. Another cool feature is that you're able to really get some in-depth information about your soldiers individually. Now, you can click on a soldier tab and find information about each of your different squads. Things like how many kills they got, how many times they forced the enemy to retreat, how many times they might have broke and ran from the enemy in disgrace. And these different stats will affect their own morale, experience, and things like that. So if you have a unit that constantly retreats from the enemy, you may not want to use them as your frontline troops. You might want to deploy them in more of a rear guard position. So the fighting in close combat takes place at the company level, which means you're able to control a couple different platoons worth of soldiers at any given time. Now, you may have a pool of about maybe 100 men or so, but you might not be able to bring them all into a particular battle. So you get to pick and choose which platoon you might want to send in, and this helps you rotate your troops out to give them some rest. Maybe if you got one squad that really suffered a morale break, you can give them a bit of a breather until the next operation. In addition to the main force, so your platoons of the 1st Division, you're also going to have some support options. So for example, in one campaign, if you know that the Germans are going to push you hard with armor, you're going to have anti-tank equipment available, either dedicated anti-tank guns, perhaps you might have a mobile self-propelled anti-tank gun, or a tank destroyer. In other battles, you might have your own armor support, and you'll be able to deploy armor to move up with your troops. I will say I've greatly enjoyed my time so far with Close Combat. I really enjoy the challenge of the AI and the fact that you really have to play smart. You really can't sacrifice your troops. If you charge an emplaced machine gun nest with about 5 or 6 troops, you're going to get them all cut down. You actually need to use things like mortars, smokes, cover and concealment, defilade from hills. You have to be tactical and you have to really take care of your troops, but at the same time, you will have to have those dedicated and calculated thrusts, which are going to use up some units, but might push the enemy off an objective. This entry into the Close Combat series does use a brand new engine called Archon, which allows you to have a pretty good control and 3D environment where you're in. So your troops, for example, can go inside of buildings to go undercover and protect them from mortar fire. You also do have a really nice system for cover and concealment. Your troops are really intelligent. If you give them an order to defend facing a certain direction, they will try to use all cover at their position. And it does feel like over time, the battles make sense. So your troops that might be having a long-range engagement with another rifle squad may not really they're not going to get a ton of kills because you're shooting random rifles across hundreds and hundreds of meters. However, if you flank an enemy who's emplaced with a mobile squad and get really close and throw grenades, it actually feels like it's a very intense little firefight. There are a few things that I think could be improved in the gameplay, which may be added later on. For example, trying to figure out which one of your squads has high morale versus other squads is getting a little bit difficult in the deployment screen. So perhaps adding something like a shaded morale bar which averages the morale of a squad when you're in your deployment screen might be a little bit easier for you instead of having to pop into the soldier tab all the time. At the end of the day, if you are a big fan of World War II tactics, especially at the company and platoon level, I do believe you're going to enjoy Close Combat. It does have a lot of replayability. You can try different strategies, you can try different approaches, and it has a lot of playthrough time because you're going through all these different campaigns with all these different operations. If you'd like to see some actual gameplay, I do have a link in the top comment below and in the more description field where I have an ongoing Let's Play. I will give you a caveat, however, I am not a great commander, so you will see some terrible decision making. I want to thank you for joining me on this channel and this video for a review of Close Combat: The Bloody First. If you're interested in joining our community, there is a lovely Discord link in the doobly-doo below, and if you'd like to support this type of content, I have a Patreon as well. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. Until next time, be well, do good work, and keep in touch.